Number 25, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Considered one of the best games ever when it became a hit on Game Boy, it was released by NES in 1998, and players were blown away by the graphics and gameplay of the game compared with the other Game Boy Zelda games. Originally designed for the Nintendo 64 DD, it was released instead on a 256 megabit cartridge, the largest capacity cartridge NES ever produced, and was also the first with 3D graphics. Number 24. Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green. Over 20 million copies of these role-playing games were sold by Nintendo for Game Boy. Developed by Game Freak, the first installments were Red and Green, which were released in Japan in 1996. Blue was later released in the year as a special edition, with Pokemon Yellow subsequently released 3 years later. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green were remade afterwards for the Game Boy Advance in 2004, where upwards of 10 million copies were sold. Number 23. Super Mario 64. Published by Nintendo for its Nintendo 64 and released in June 23, 1996, Super Mario 64 sold over 11 million copies worldwide. The third-person free-roaming 3D platform was the brainchild of Shigeru Miyamoto, who had spent years trying to build a fully 3D platform for the SNES before he quit the idea altogether. However, when the company shifted to the development of N64, he played a big role in helping the company veer away from the same thumb-destroying crosspads they'd been using for over a decade. Number 22, The Sims. Often considered the most successful video game series of all time, The Sims has sold more than 150 million copies worldwide as of May 2011. A strategic life simulation video game, it's also hailed as the best-selling PC franchise in history. The sandbox game was developed by Maxis and was later turned over to The Sims Studio, published by Electronic Arts. The gameplay involves creating virtual characters called Sims who are placed in homes where players can direct their moods and satisfy their desires. Number 21, Tetris. Released in June 6, 1984, this tile-matching puzzle video game was created by Alexei Pajitnov, a young researcher at Moscow's Academy of Science. The inspiration came from a board game called Pentamino, where 12 different shapes made out of 5 squares are twisted and turned until they all fit together in a box. Nowadays, an estimated billion people have played Tetris, the first entertainment software from the USSR that was exported to the US. This game is available on nearly all platforms, helping it earn the topmost ranking on the 100 Greatest Games of All Time list from Electronic Gaming Monthly's 100th issue. Number 20, Nintendogs. A real-time pet simulation video game for the Nintendo DS, Nintendogs has sold 23 million copies worldwide as of March 2011. The game uses the DS's touchscreen and built-in microphone to pet a dog and use various items. It also allows players to interact with others through the console's wireless link-up. It's received positive critical reception and has many awards, including the 2006 Innovation Award from PC World. Number 19, Final Fantasy VII. One of the most popular titles in the series, Final Fantasy VII became an immediate critical and commercial success when it was first released in 1997 for the Sony PlayStation. A version was also released in 1998 for Microsoft Windows and for the PlayStation Network in 2009. It sold 10 million copies by May 2010 and was highly popular as it was the first game in the series to be released using 3D computer graphics with fully rendered characters on pre-rendered backgrounds. The first role-playing video game of the Final Fantasy series made available for European gamers, Final Fantasy VII was lauded for its graphics, gameplay, music, and story, which led to its publisher, Square Enix, to make a series of sequels and prequels using other platforms. Number 18, Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Considered to be the most visually stunning video game of the Grand Theft Auto series, Vice City is the second 3D action-adventure video game that was developed by Rockstar North in the UK in 2002. Shortly after, it became the best-selling video game of 2002 and the best-selling PlayStation 2 game of all time as well. After its debut for PlayStation 2, it was ported to Xbox and Microsoft Windows in 2003. It also became available on Steam in 2008 and Mac App Store in 2011. For the game's 10th anniversary celebration in 2012, Rockstar released a new version of Vice City for iOS and other Android platforms. Number 17, Half-Life 2. Originally released on November 16, 2004, it took 5 years of development as the game was leaked and distributed on the internet to actually complete the game. It was praised, however, for its gameplay, soundtracks, animation, storyline, and graphics when it was finally made public. It was also awarded Game of the Decade at the 2012 Video Game Awards. As of February of 2012, it's already sold 12 million copies, making it one of the best-selling PC games of all time. Number 16, StarCraft. StarCraft is a real-time strategy-based game first released in 1998 by Blizzard. Even though it was released 14 years ago, the game continues to leave a mark on the gaming world and is often considered to have raised the bar for strategy-based games. As of 2009, the game sold over 9 million copies across the world. Number 15, Resident Evil 4. Initially created for GameCube, a PS2 version was announced before it was released. Various versions were also available for Microsoft Windows, Wii, PlayStation 3, and Xbox. The game pioneered the over-the-shoulder third-person point of view and was a top contender for the 2005 Game of the Year award. Number 14, Halo 2. Developed by Bungie Studios and released on November 9, 2004 for Xbox, a Microsoft version was also released on May 31, 2007. The game uses a new physics engine called Havoc, and they added weapons, vehicles, and new multiplayer maps as well. With 6.3 million copies sold in the United States alone, it's the best-selling first-generation Xbox game. Number 13, Chrono Trigger. Released in 1995 and published by Square, now known as Square Enix, for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, the Square also released a version for PlayStation in 1998 and a DS version in 2008. It was a huge success even upon release because of its character development, side quests, multiple endings, and meticulous graphics, making it one of the greatest video games ever created. Number 12, GoldenEye 007. A video game released for Nintendo 64 in 1997, GoldenEye became the party game of the 90s, and not surprisingly ended up on the best video games of all time list due to its deathmatch mode, which paved the way for other multiplayer shooters. Number 11, World of Warcraft. WoW is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game released by Blizzard Entertainment in '94 as the fourth installment set in the fantasy Warcraft universe. It's hugely popular with over 12 million players worldwide and is currently the world's most subscribed MMORPG. Number 10, Doom. It wasn't the first-person shooter video game, but when it comes to that genre, it was highly influential and significant. Without this seminal game, which was released by ID Software in 1993, its genre would not look like it does today. It was solely responsible for the word deathmatch, which is now a popular part of gaming lexicon, and showed the full potential of the first-person shooter genre. Doom was leaps and bounds ahead of its time, and its legacy has persisted with a motion picture and a book chronicling the game's development, tailored for die-hard fans yearning for the behind-the-scenes scoop. Number 9, Super Metroid. Also known as Metroid 3, this is an action-adventure game published for the Super Nintendo Entertainment video game console in 1994. It was also released for the Wii Virtual Console in 2007, and a new version for the Wii U Virtual Console is scheduled for release in 2013. The game's plot revolves around Samus Aran and her quest to retrieve a stolen Metroid from the space pirates. The game was universally acclaimed with an aggregated score of 96% from GameRankings, named Game of the Month in '94, received an Editor's Choice Award as the best action game of '94, and ranked as one of the best games of all time in 2003. Number 8, Metal Gear Solid. MGS, a stealth action video game, was developed by Konami Computer Entertainment in 1988. It features impressive cinematic cutscenes and voice acting. However, what made this game hugely popular was the depth. The bosses were not just mere opponents, but were well-crafted characters with their own personality, ideology, and will to fight. This was one of the greatest gaming franchises ever, with more than 6 million copies sold, and has spawned numerous sequels, prequels, and spin-offs, aside from several games, radio drama, comics, and novels. Number 7, Street Fighter II, The World Warrior. A competitive fighting game that was originally released for the arcades in 1991, Street Fighter II was an improvement in many ways, including the use of command-based special moves, a 6-button configuration, and a selection of multiple playable characters with their own unique fighting styles. The success of Street Fighter II can be attributed to the game boom of the 90s, as well as the sub-series of updated versions. It exceeded $1.5 billion in gross revenues in 1993, had 25 million Americans playing the game in homes and arcades in 1994, and sold more than 14 million copies through its Super NES and Mega Drive console ports, making SF2 Capcom's best-selling game of all time. Number 6, Call of Duty Modern Warfare. This game was hugely popular to gamers due to its cinematics, interactive gameplay, and highly polished mechanics, which made it one of the best multiplayer games available. Published in 2007 by Activision, this first-person shooter video game used a proprietary game engine and was available on several platforms. It was the most highly acclaimed in the Call of Duty series and earned numerous awards, including IGN's Best Xbox 360 Game and the top-selling game worldwide in 2007 with 13 million copies sold. Number 5, Sid Meier's Civilization. This turn-based strategy video game was the frontrunner for all the 4X genre. explore, expand, exploit, and exterminate. Created for Microprose in 1991, the game's objective is to build an empire that will stand the test of time. It requires the micromanagement skill of players, and though not as popular as SimCity, the game's franchise has sold more than 8 million copies as of March 2008, with many of them produced by Sid Meier. Number 4. Brain Age. Not all video games are created for fun and recreation, as shown by Brain Age, an entertainment video game that uses puzzles such as Stroop tests, mathematical questions, and Sudoku. It's an entertainment product that was based on the work of its creator, Dr. Kawashima, in neurosciences. It's received both commercial and critical success with almost 19 million copies sold as of March 2011, and even received multiple awards for its quality and innovation. Number 3. Need for Speed. NFS is the most successful racing video game ever, with over 100 million copies sold as of 2009. Considered one of the most successful video game franchises ever, it was first released in 1994 exclusively for 5th generation video game consoles, though it was eventually featured in all 7th generation consoles by 2008. A series of racing video games published by Electronic Arts, NFS was well liked by racing maniacs not only for its speed, but also for the advanced graphics, car selection and modification, sound effects, and real-time car racing experience. Number 2. Donkey Kong Country. This game not only brings back the Donkey Kong character, which was often viewed as a cult classic, but also started a new franchise entry based on its new characters and gameplay. Developed by Rare in 1994, it sold over 9 million copies worldwide, making it the second best-selling SNES game ever. Donkey Kong Country was the first game to use pre-rendered sprites, which created a 3D effect throughout the game. Its graphics were made from Silicon 3D graphic models compressed for 2D SNES that gave its animations large amounts of detail for a 16-bit console, which was revolutionary for the time. And number 1, Pac-Man. This classic game needs no introduction as it's still popular today, and the name itself is nearly synonymous with video games. Developed in 1980, it became a staple of pop culture in that period and led to sales of countless merchandise, an animated TV series, and a top 10 hit single. Pac-Man is considered a landmark in video game history, the most famous arcade game of all time, and the highest grossing video game ever, with a generated income of $2.5 billion, all before 1990.